not just one, but three missile defense systems in the Asia-Pacific. The THAAD system in South Korea, the Aegis, and the Patriot systems in the Pacific. THAAD is designed to shoot down any short and medium-range ballistic missiles in the latter stage of their flight, but more importantly, it boasts a powerful radar system. It could provide the first warning of any missile fired from the DPRK. Once THAAD detects a missile launch, its battery will send radar tracking data to U.S. Navy warships equipped with the Aegis missile defense system sailing between South Korea and Japan. Aegis will then fire interceptors at the missiles in mid-flight. If Aegis fails, data from its own radar and the THAAD will be sent to Patriot missile batteries. Only Patriot missile defenses have been tested in combat in the Gulf War in 1991 and the Iraq War in 2003. The wartime operational control is now in the hands of the U.S., though the South Korean government has been working to take it back, and the differences between South Korea and Japan have been a sour point in the trilateral cooperation.
We begin with escalating tensions between North Korea and the international community. U.S. President Donald Trump spoke on the phone with his counterparts in France and China, where they said priorities are maintaining regional peace and stability. The leaders vowed to cooperate on putting an end to the rogue states' provocations. Ian Shin reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron agreed to work together on the tense situation on the Korean peninsula, with the aim of getting North Korea to conform to its international obligations. In a phone call on Saturday, the two leaders discussed the need to confront the increasing danger associated with the North's destabilizing behavior. Washington and Pyongyang have recently been using heated rhetoric against each other, following continued threats from the Kim Jong-un regime. Earlier, Trump also spoke with his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping on the phone. Xi reaffirmed all sides should avoid rhetoric or action that would worsen tensions, and acknowledged that the UN Security Council's recent adoption of tough new sanctions on North Korea was an important step towards peace and stability. South Korea's top office said the phone call could be a new phase in easing security tensions on the peninsula. President Moon Jae-in is expected to address the topic of North Korea and regional security in his upcoming speeches on National Liberation Day and during a special press conference on the 17th, marking his first 100 days in office. Meanwhile, the European Union says it'll convene an emergency meeting on Monday to further discuss the ongoing tensions.
Seoul's defense ministry says there will be no environmental damage due to the THAAD missile defense system deployed in Seongju, some 300 kilometers south of the capital. Now, this follows the Defense and Environment Ministry's joint survey of radiation and noise from the system on Saturday. The survey was initially scheduled for last Thursday, but was postponed due to bad weather and fierce protests from local residents. The Defense Ministry says it plans to conduct additional environmental tests next week and hold a discussion with the members of the local community this Thursday about the permanent deployment of the THAAD system.
Playing this game of this verbal one-upsmanship is only making the risk for potential conflict higher, whether or not it's intentional. And so I think, what the U.S. needs to do is not play Pyongyang's game and really step back and look at what is really in our interest and what is our strategy and how can we convey that in a convincing way.
I was going to say, that was my next question. Kim Jong-un has used words like he's going to destroy the United States, bring the United States to ashes. In a way, is he provoking President Trump to come back at him in hopes of escalating these words?
Well, I think, with North Korea and the propaganda, this is very formulaic. They do it a lot, but it is very much a deterrence factor. And so they're using it as if the U.S. does military actions, this is what will happen. Whereas what the president said on Tuesday was very different, of if North Korea threatens us, this is what's going to happen. And I think that formula is that distinction is very important because it draws these fake red lines that, there are consequences for in terms of credibility and reputation if you continue to make these red lines and then not act on them, it makes it a very difficult for the U.S. to have credibility going forward. And we saw this in April, where he threatened the Armada and the movement of the Carl Vinson group, and then North Korea feels it won that battle and called his bluff. And so now the question is, for him to do these kinds of things, are they going to call his bluff on this as well, and what is that going to look like?
The prospect of nuclear Armageddon, and with it, a media whip panic about how to survive the fallout.
People begin weighing their disaster plans.
Nuclear warhead could land in Hawaii in 20 minutes.
Additional information on radiation from a potential nuclear blast.
This is an existential threat to the United States.
Google searches for how to survive a nuclear attack have gone through the roof within the past few days, beating old classics like How to Get Rich and How to Be Happy. No surprise then that nuclear Holocaust survival guides are appearing all over the place, garnering tens of thousands of views.
Nobody ever wants to experience the devastation that's caused by nuclear weapons. Please get prepared while you still can. A great storm is coming, and time is quickly running out.
Even old guidelines are getting a new lease of life, like the rather ominous affair posted in 2014 by a local healthcare agency.
Mom, I know you care about me. I want you to teach me how I can survive. That being outside after a nuclear explosion, like I am right now, is the worst place I could be.
If that's too dark for you, here's a cheery little ditty advising people to stay indoors and watch the news.
Oh no, it's blown, the cloud is in the sky. Don't run, no fun, you've got to get inside. You don't need to be scared, you don't need to be loud, 'cause you can survive even a mushroom cloud. Get inside and stay inside. Stay tuned to the news.
But if you don't have faith your house will remain standing, you could always invest in a bunker. Manufacturers say business is booming.
We've seen a giant increase in sales, especially in the last 3 days since Trump made his fire and fury comment, and then especially after Kim Jong-un made his comment about sending missiles over Guam. So the tensions are very high. People are taking precautions. They're interested in shelters.
More responsible than our own president. Here to react to that comment, Senior Fellow for the London Center for Policy Research, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. Tony, great to see you this morning.
Good to see you, Clayton.
Keith Ellison, your immediate thoughts to that comment?
He needs to figure out what side he's on, and clearly it's not on the side of America. Look, I don't mean to speak in such direct and blunt terms, but we are here because of the failure of diplomacy. And somehow this congressman fails to recognize and study history of how we got here. It's time for him to stop being a partisan and start being an American. And that's where we're at. This is not about anti-war. This is about the fact that we're trying to prevent war and end one, which actually started in 1951. So I do, with all due respect to the congressman, read the history books, figure out what side you're on, and move forward.
I fail to understand how the president's comments about locked and loaded, and if the North Korean regime acts, we're going to respond, how that is out of line.
Clayton, that's kind of the, if President Obama would have said that, he would have been applauded. And look, President, he's looking for his Goldilocks moment. He doesn't say enough on this issue, but he says too much on this. Look, this is all about trying to be very clear on consequences. This president is recognizing the fact that the situation in North Korea has gotten worse, not better, by the complete failure of diplomacy and the policy of appeasement for the past 30 years. So, he's making it as clear as he can that this is going to change, that now there will be the potential of and likelihood of military action, of continued provocations. And going back to Congressman Ellison's comment, look, it is not President Obama, President Trump, anyone else on our side who's been firing missiles across the Korean Peninsula trying to prompt a military response. And let me say something else really quickly. Something completely unreported here is the fact that North Koreans along the DMZ, the demilitarized zone, have had a 3,000% uptick over the past 8 years of provocations. That means small armed conflicts that are not reported. So again, it's time for a new message to be sent, and President Trump is sending that.
Right, a missile fired towards Guam is a slap right to the face of America. And Chelsea Handler tweeting this yesterday: to all the generals surrounding our idiot-in-chief, the longer you wait to remove him, the longer your name will appear negatively in history, basically calling for a coup, a military coup in the United States, because somehow he's acting unhinged.
Well, look, Guam is U.S. territory, and let me be clear on this. If the North Koreans hit Guam with a conventional weapon or even come close, nuclear conventional, there will be a military response. Let me just be very clear on that. And to this point, look, this is what we call sedition. Title 18, I think, Section 215. And so I think Ms. Handler needs to be visited by the Secret Service, because this is calling for the removal and illegal removal of a duly elected president. And this is no small issue. I am completely fed up as a citizen of the left getting away with this complete, inappropriate and continuous call for the president's removal. He won. Get over it. Move on. And I think people like her, who are calling for essentially a violent overthrow of the president, need to be looked at seriously for what they're saying, because it is indeed, in this case, I believe, a violation of clear U.S. code. So.
Yeah. Well, I think it would be great for all Americans to try to come together on this issue.
I couldn't agree more, but she's not.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, always great to see you, Tony. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thanks, take care.